Okay, everybody, hello, welcome back. My name is Mariano, and today we're gonna do a little bit different of a ranking video, right? It's not gonna be like a tier list. It's gonna be my actual top 10. I'm gonna have the screens on, or the players on the screen. Have a brief discussion about each one. To preface all this, I want to just say that these are my opinions. Everyone's gonna have a different opinion, different ranking. They might have someone too high, too low. Different spots. You know, it is what it is. I understand. There's an argument that can be made for a lot of these guys. Some can be interchangeable, but for the most part, this is my solidified top 10. So the reason why I'm doing this list is because essentially this is kind of what sparked the idea of doing this channel. Was having a discussion with my friends, talking about our top 10 list, and I was like, well, you know, I think it'd be kind of fun to post it somewhere, have a discussion, and put it on a video, right? And so that's kind of what this video is going to be. And so, yeah, let's get into it today. And to start my list at number 10 is Bill Russell. What more is there to say about this guy, right? The most winningest NBA player of all time. He's got 11 rings, one of the best defenders of all time, just a very solid and consistent guy throughout his whole career. I'm sure a lot of people would argue that he could be higher than 10. It's just hard for me to put him that high. I didn't get to see him as much. And no disrespect to that. It's just that he was playing in a different era. There was a lot less teams, a lot less talent. And while he does have 11 championship rings, it'd be hard for me to imagine that he could do the same today, right? But again, him being in the top 10 is still a great credit to him and who he was as a player. And also, he's probably one of the best individuals to put on an NBA jersey. Also, being like such an advocate outside of the court, right? And so I really admire him for that, and for that he earns my top 10 spot in this list. And number 9, Wilt Chamberlain, who a lot of people consider his rival, right? Arguably, the second most dominant NBA player of all time. Someone who you will never see anyone reciprocate his type of scoring in the NBA ever again, right? The amount of crazy stats he put up, 50 points per game in a season, 22 plus rebounds a game in a season. Like, that's ridiculous. You're legitimately never going to see those type of numbers. He holds the record for the highest NBA points in a game, which is 100. The closest one ever to that was 81 by Kobe, and he's just an all-around great player. But again, what kind of puts him down on my list for me is, again, the talent pool that he played against, the era that he played in. And while it's hard to compare eras, you can definitely compare talent, and you can definitely, you can admire what he does, but at what scale, right? And again, great player, a great individual. He died too early, but at the same time, that he is not above the rest of these guys to me, and for that, he earns that 9 spot. Now, number 8, the Diesel, Shaq. To me, the most dominant player of all time. He's almost like a living myth, right? Or a living legend, really. You have pictures of him taking 5 people from a different team, or 4 to 5 people from a different team, trying to stop him in the paint, and you still can't deny him. While he never actually picked up a shot or learned to make a free throw consistently, he was still an all-around great player. He's still someone who could average 30 and 12 a night, easy, maybe even 15 a night, especially earlier on in his career, and make an impact on that team. He was the driving force to that 3-peat with the Lakers. I believe he was the best player on that team over Kobe. A lot of people could debate that, but I think he was the reason why I took him over the top, right? And for that, he earns that number 8 spot. I think he will never see another dominant force like him. Giannis is kind of in that realm of him, but I still don't see him as dominant. I don't think people fear Giannis as much as they feared Shaq back in the day, and for that reason, he's number 8 on my list. Number 7, Larry Legend. An interesting player. 4 championships. He's kind of a do-it-all guy. Averaged 23.5 points for his career. Great scoring numbers. Career got cut kind of early due to some back injuries. But overall, a great player. Really winning player. The only reason that I believe he doesn't have more rings is because on the other side of the ball, or the other side of the NBA, you had him competing against Magic Johnson, who I think they're kind of like in tandem together. I could see some people interchange each other. My opinion, as you'll see coming up on the list, is different than that. But yeah, I think that barring a Magic Johnson in the league, he would have had a lot more championships. He was always the best player on his team, one of the best scorers of all time, one of the better shooters of all time. It's kind of hard to judge that because of how much shooting has progressed now, but at the time, he was one of the best shooters of all time, if not the best shooter in the NBA. And he's just a great player, someone who could play defense. He could do it all, jack of all trades, and also looks like a hillbilly doing it, right? And that's amazing to me. And I think that earns him that number 7 spot. Now, number 6, his partner in crime, right? Magic Johnson. I just think Magic Johnson was a tad better than Larry Bird. Now, I can see an argument being made for, one over the other, either way. I personally would not be swayed by that. I do like Magic Johnson a little bit better. Again, 5 championships. I know that he kind of rode on the tail end of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but I think he was the best passer of all time by far. I don't think we'll ever see someone like him as far as passing the ball. I think someone who can be compared to that would be kind of a LeBron, but LeBron's not as good of a passer as Magic Johnson, but he's up there. Like I said, 5 championships. Really kind of was the driving force for those championship teams. In my opinion, I think that as he progressed, he kind of became the better player. And also, I mean, he was someone who, again, like there's that story in his rookie season where he had to go and play center in a playoff game and dropped 42, and it's like he would have been a very undersized center, but because of his skills and his size and the way he plays, he was able to do it at an amazing clip, right? And so for that, he's got my number 6 spot. Now, number 5, Tim Duncan, one of the most winningest players in the NBA of all time, right? I think his winning percentage is like 70%. He was the driving force to the 2000 to 2013 Spurs. 5 championships within that time. The first 2 came with, I think, David Robinson, and they were kind of like a tag team duo, right? Like probably the best front court in the NBA at that time. And again, like he's just someone who's always solid. I think he has the most defensive, all-team defensive all-team nods for first team and second team of all time. I think he's at like 15. I think he's just probably one of the best defenders of all time, one of the most consistent scorers of all time, one of the best post players of all time. And I think when you think Tim Duncan, you think consistency, you think winning, and you think a great player, right? And for that, he's the best power forward of all time, and he's also the number 5 best player of all time on my list, right? And I feel like a lot of people don't give him that nod because he's kind of a boring player, but he's Mr. Fundamental. He did everything right that you want him to do on that court at the highest level. And yeah, for that, he got my number 5 spot. Now, number 4, I feel like a lot of people are going to think I have him a little bit high, but I think it's Kobe. He is the closest replication to Michael Jordan, okay? And that says a lot because everyone and most of everyone in their life wanted to be like Mike, right? They wanted to be MJ, and no one could ever really reach him. And then there was Kobe. He came drafted in '96, came in kind of 13th pick. No one really thought too much of him. He was kind of a player whose mentality drove him to be one of the best players of all time. And he kind of had a similar MJ mentality, possibly even crazier than MJ. He just lacked the skill set that MJ brought to the game, but over time he kind of developed that, and he became who he was, right? 5 NBA championships. The first 3, while he didn't, win those final MVP over Shaq, I do believe he played a huge role. I don't think he was better than Shaq at that time, but I think overall as a career, him winning 2 more championships and being the best player on those teams and continuing his legacy and his greatness for 20 years, I think that earns him a number 4 spot. We're never gonna see another Kobe, right? It's so sad to see him gone now, way too early. But he left a legacy that a lot of people don't leave, regardless of how high they are ranked. And for that reason, being such a winning player, being such a having that Black Mamba mentality and being so driven, and having mentality and drive over talent, which a lot of people don't have. A lot of people come in with a ton of talent but not that drive. He was different. He was a different breed, and for that reason, he's number 4 on my list. Number 3, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. As of right now, Kareem has the most points of all time in the NBA. soon enough that'll be broken by LeBron, either this year or next year, probably this year, upcoming, of course. And I think, again, one of the more winningest player of all time, 6 NBA championships, 6 MVPs. He had the hardest move to guard of probably all time. You know, a lot of people can do the sky hook, right? Which, again, the Kareem sky hook that got adopted by him because of his name. But no one could do it how he did it and at his height, right? He was, 7'3", doing a sky hook that is essentially unguardable. Like, there's no guarding that. You'd have to be a lot taller than him, and the fact that he does it with his hand and protects it with his body, it's just impossible. It's just unguardable. And on top of that, he was consistent basically his whole 20-year career. Even his last years, he was putting up double-double. And he's great. He's one of those guys who was on the court and off the court a great person. One of the best scorers of all time. One of the most consistent scorers of all time. One of the best winningest players of all time. And he was one of the most unguardable players of all time. You can't say that for a lot of these guys. Some of those guys were guardable. Regardless of that, you know, Kareem earns that top 3 spot. Now, number 2 and 1, as most of you can imagine, it's between 2 guys, right? LeBron or Michael Jordan. And for me, while this might upset a lot of people, my number 2 spot goes to Michael Jordan. What can I say? Michael Jordan is, in the eyes of most people, considered the best player of all time. And I can't really argue that too much, but I don't think when I look at Michael Jordan, he is the best all-around player of all time. He might be one of the better winners of all time. And again, he's my number 2 spot, so I'm not crapping on him by any means, right? But at the same time, I just don't have him to that caliber of LeBron. He's a better winner. He has better mentality than LeBron James. I don't think he's a better basketball player than LeBron James in a lot of different aspects. Now, you can say a lot about Michael Jordan. A lot of people are going to say a lot about Michael Jordan. Maybe some people have clicked off in the video at this point, right? But to me, Michael Jordan, he's the second best player of all time. There's a lot that can be said, but I feel like a lot of people have him as number 1, as a consensus number 1. And if you ask, a majority of people are going to say Michael Jordan, right? But I think a lot of that comes with the time and age of when Michael Jordan was playing. And while I do think that there can be an argument for number 1, and I'm not going to be upset, I just feel like LeBron has received so much hate throughout his career that you can kind of like stopped him from becoming that number 1, right? Or even having that possibility. I think people have Michael Jordan on the top of their pyramid as a god, essentially, right? Someone who cannot be reached. And while that is somewhat true, I don't feel like that should discredit what LeBron has done. And again, Michael Jordan's probably the best scorer of all time, right? I'm not going to negate that. And he had the best mentality of any player of all time. He wanted to win. Even if that meant him being an asshole at points to his teammates and other people, he wanted to win. And that's what made him strive for greatness and what allowed him to become a great player. But at the same time, I just don't think he's a better overall player than LeBron James. There's a lot I could say. And if you have your opinion and your discussion, leave it down below in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know where you'd rank people. And number 1, to no avail, is LeBron James. I think he is the most complete and wholesome NBA player of all time. I think he is going to go down as the person with the most points. He's going to be the only person in a probably 40,000, 10,000, 10,000 club, possibly a 40,000, 12,000, and 12,000 club, that meaning points, assists, and rebounds. And he's just a can-do-it-all. And another thing that he doesn't have more championships than Michael Jordan. He has a lot more finals losses. He's been to a lot more finals, though. I will say that. Okay, on that side, Michael Jordan does have them. But LeBron's longevity is the thing that's going to carry him over Michael Jordan. If some people don't have him now, some people may sway and change their mind to LeBron, who aren't, Michael Jordan stands and won't look at it in a wholesome type of view, and just instead of just being driven to Michael Jordan. His longevity is going to carry him to that number 1 spot. And I think a lot of people don't take into consideration that he's been putting up those type of numbers for almost 20 years, and he's going to continue to do it at least a couple more years. And I think that's what's going to take him over Michael Jordan. He's going to have the scoring title of all time. He's going to have he's going to be top 5 in assists, probably top 5 in games played. Basically, any statistical category, LeBron James is going to be in the top of those, at least top 10 or somewhere around there. Maybe blocks not, or there's a certain few things that maybe not. But I think he's just the most complete NBA player. I think that he came into a time where the NBA was shifting into a different type of era, different type of talent. The talent now today is a lot stiffer than the talent before. But again, I think that he played in multiple eras extremely well, all at a high volume, being one of the top 5 players of all in the NBA in every single year he's played. And I think he's going to continue that. And for that, he's earned my #1 spot. But okay, guys, that's going to do it for my list today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it's probably a controversial list. I think all top 10 lists for NBA players of all time are controversial. But if you guys enjoyed my content and what I talked about, please consider leaving a like, subscribing. Also, leave a comment. Let me know what your top 10 is. I'm sure we'll have different views and different people in different places. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you guys, and take care.